I'm not a hero, but if I can inspire people, that is just a gift that will keep on giving to me.
Joe Lozito is talking about the event that altered his life nearly 15 years ago.
You saw the ones in the back of my head. He got me up here. He got me over here.
On the morning of Saturday, February 12th, he got off the train from Philadelphia, where he was living at the time, and arrived in New York's Penn Station to go to work. When he entered the subway, he saw something irregular. He says that it took a little while for the doors to close on the uptown train he was taking that winter morning. Two uniformed police officers entered his car at the front of the train but went right into the closed area where the person driving the train was. Suddenly, someone in regular clothes entered the train looking like any other passenger but started banging on the door to the closed area claiming to be a police officer.
Well, these two cops got on and they went in with the motorman. And then the doors close. And the train starts, but we're going really slow. Like you start out slow on the subway, just like you start out slow in your car. You accelerate, then you go faster. Well, here, we're not really accelerating. This guy comes up, bangs on the door, the motorman's door.
As Joe tried to process what was happening through all the confusion, he didn't realize that the man who was banging on the motor person's car was a criminal who had been on the loose for more than 24 hours. Suddenly, he came face to face with the city's most wanted man. Unprovoked, the man started attacking Joe, leaving the passenger to fight back.
He reaches into his jacket, pulls out the 8-inch knife, says, "You're gonna die," and pop, right under here. He thrusts it right into my face. So now, I know I'm in a fight, and now there's no more thought process. It's just reactionary.
Joe was able to tackle the man to the ground, and in doing so, he was stabbed in the face, multiple times in the back of the head, his arm, and hand.
It was unprovoked. I think my crime that day was geography. I think we found out later what he wanted to do was, in his mind, take over the train. And I think I was the last. He didn't know about the police in with the motorman. I think in his mind, I was the last barrier to him taking over the train. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe 6 foot, 6'1", probably 170, 180. You could tell he was in good shape. I mean, I was definitely stronger than he was, but it wasn't like he was someone that was going to go down without a fight. He definitely put up resistance. I think at the time, well, I'm 6'2". I was probably around 265, 270 at the time.
Joe says despite pedestrians and police being on the train, only one civilian, a construction worker, came to his aid.
They didn't expect that. You know, there's no way that you can prepare yourself for that kind of carnage. I don't blame anybody for, you had some people that ran to the next car and were looking through the window and the door. You had some people that just ran to the other end of the car, trying to avoid it. And again, I don't blame a single person. I don't know if I'm talking to you without Alfred Douglas here. Like I said, he helped the cops. Moments later, once I was realizing the situation I was in, he did come over and render some aid to me by applying his hand to my deepest wound on the back of my head. So at some point, I realized I was probably the only person on that train that didn't know who he was, because it was a news cycle here in New York. It hadn't made the news. I mean, he was on the front page of the papers. It hadn't made the news in Philadelphia yet. So I think if people didn't realize who he was maybe at the beginning of it, at some point it may have clicked, oh my God, this is the guy that's on the front page of the paper.
During his melee with the killer known as Mad Max Gelman, someone pulled the brake on the subway car, stopping it between Penn Station and Times Square, two popular destinations for strap hangers. While police arrested their perpetrator, Joe was sitting by himself, bleeding out, and said he saw his life flash before his eyes.
In a subway that's not moving, bleeding to death. And I didn't realize that until I was sitting down, kind of assessing the situation, and I realized we're not moving. So I'm just sitting there and I'm watching my life pour out of me, and I'm starting to get nervous because I'm starting to think that this subway car is going to be the coffin that I die in. And the part I always get emotional about is my family. So I start thinking about them. At the time, my sons were 10 and 7, and like I get emotional. Like I'm getting emotional now, and one of the emotions is anger. Like yeah. So I'm basically sitting there, and I'm starting to freak out. I remember telling myself to try to calm down, and I'm sitting there, and the blood's pouring out of me, and we're not moving, and there's nobody paying attention to me. And a cop walks by, and I have my head down, and I kind of grab by the arm, and I just say, "What's going on? You got to get me out of here." Yeah. We're doing it. And I said, and I don't remember which, because it happened twice, and so I don't remember if I said which one first, but I said, "Are you married?" And they said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm married too. I got a wife. I got to get out of here. I got to get home to my wife." Don't worry. So I sit there a little bit longer. We're not moving. I grab another wrist, because I didn't want to lift my head up, but I could see them walking by. And I said, I asked them, like, "Do you have kids?" And they said, "Yeah." I'm like, "I have 2 little boys at home. I got to get home to them. You got to get me off this train." And this time they said, "Don't worry, we're going to get you off this train. You see how we're coming from the back of the train? The paramedics are on their way. Just hang tight. They'll be here soon." Okay. At that point, Alfred, person I mentioned, he actually started yelling at the other passengers, like, "Are you going to watch a man die in front of you? Nobody's going to help this guy. Nobody's going to do anything." And he put his hand, like I said, on the back of my neck here with my deepest wound. And like I always say, like, Alfred doesn't know me. He doesn't know if I'm carrying a disease or anything like that. It was a very selfless act. I asked one of the cops, I'm like, "Why aren't we moving?" And their answer was that there were cops on the tracks, and before they could move the train, they had to make sure all the cops were off the tracks, which I guess intellectually makes sense. But at the time, I'm thinking, aren't you guys able to communicate? Like, like I'm here bleeding to death. And before I know it, we started moving. And I go, "Wait a second." I'm like, what's happening here? Where are we going? The paramedics, they're coming from the back of the train. What's going on? And one of the cops says, "Well, no, they're waiting for you at 42nd Street.
Finally, they made it to 42nd Street, Times Square.
We got to 42nd Street. They had obviously cleared the platform. The only people on the platform were more cops and the paramedics. So when we pulled in, they brought him off. Paramedics came on, and they lifted me up, and as they were putting me on the stretcher, I passed out. But I didn't pass out completely. I passed out, the way I always equate it to is if you're watching TV and you start to doze off, you're passed out, but you're sleeping, but you can still hear everything around you. So I'm on the stretch, and it was just, I don't know how many seconds it was, because then I snapped out of it. And when I woke up, that was the first time I felt any pain, because the whole time the adrenaline's going, I don't feel any pain. When he's stabbing me in the head and everything like that, I'm feeling the pressure, but it's no pain, it's just like someone's pressing on your head, and I hear him grunting and things like that, but no pain or anything.
Joe was briefed by police about the crimes of Bad Max Gelman and what he did.
Police say 23-year-old Gelman stabbed to death his stepfather, this beautiful young woman he was obsessed with, and her mother. He also allegedly hijacked 2 cars and killed a pedestrian in a hit and run.
This is where the accused killer came to hide out while he was on the run. It's an abandoned railroad shack, and it's being called the Psycho's Lair. Let's take a look inside. Wow. Watch out for those needles on the ground there, Joe. It is disgusting, filthy, and foul down here. Garbage everywhere. There are mattresses strewn about the floor. You've got some dirty old blankets here, some clothes in the corner. It looks like they've been using that barrel to start fires at night to stay warm. And really, this is the perfect hideout if you're trying to avoid the police, because you're completely hidden from the street up above.
Not in jail!
He met his match when he attacked Joseph Lozito.
Joe also found out that the term likely, which he heard a police officer use to describe his condition, is police jargon for likely to die. After a few days in the hospital, Joe was released and became the talk of New York City and appeared on Inside Edition.
Total strangers wanted to shake the hero's hand in Times Square today, even cops. And his wife Andrea had a Valentine's Day kiss for her hero.
While he was praised by his fellow citizens, Joe remains humble even after all these years. However, he had to fight again, this time against the city of New York. He testified at a grand jury hearing for Gelman, where he saw the police officer that called him likely.
I testified. They showed pictures of my head and everything that some have not been made public. There was one of my deepest wound that, if you look at the scar, kind of goes diagonally like this. But in the picture, the wound is very vertical because they had to grab my skin and pull it tight to sew it up again. So in that particular picture, you actually see my skull. Okay, so that's never been made public. I saw it in the ADA's office that morning, and that was one of the pictures they showed to the grand jurors. So I went first. I left. But one of the parts of the story that I love to tell, Terrence Howell went in after me, and while I'm waiting, who am I sitting next to? Tamara Taylor, the other cop on the train. And again, at this point, I still don't know what's going on. So I'm just whatever. So, but she did seem uneasy. No, I'm not going to lie. And I'd swear on a stack of Bibles, she seemed uncomfortable. And I guess, I don't know. It was worth, I don't know why I said it. And I said, do you remember when you called me likely on the train? And she just looked at me and said, you remember that? And I go, I remember everything. And that was it. She wouldn't even look at me.
Joe pursued a lawsuit against the city of New York. In his lawsuit, he claimed that the two officers did not help him, and it was his actions that brought Gelman down, which allowed the killer to be arrested. The city denied Lozito's accusations. In the summer of 2013, a judge dismissed his lawsuit and said, quote, no direct promises of protection were made to Mr. Lozito, end quote. The police had, quote, no special duty, end quote, to protect him. Gelman was sentenced to 200 years to life in prison for his attack on Joe and for killing 4 other people. Terrence Howell was awarded for his bravery by the Police Benevolent Association, something that irks Joe to this day. Inside Edition Digital has reached out to the PBA for comment and has not heard back. Inside Edition Digital has also requested to speak to Howell and Taylor through the PBA and has not heard back. Inside Edition Digital has also reached out to the NYPD to see if Howell and Taylor are still employed by the force. We've also asked for comment on this case. We have not heard back on both requests. Even Mad Max himself said the police officers hid when he spoke to A&E in an episode of The Killer Speaks, where he talked about trying to take over the train from the motor booth.
So I took out the knife, I went to stab the police officer. I missed him by like an inch, went to stab him in the stomach. He slammed the door right away. And this bald guy, he was all nosy what was going on. He was right there. He was staring at me.
The bald man that Gelman was speaking of was, of course, Joe Lozito. As Joe's wounds have healed and he still grapples with what happened that day, he has never shied from telling his story and even put a book out about his experience.
I wrote a book. That was one of the biggest things because this was a big deal for me. And that was probably the most cathartic thing, doing that process.
Today, Joe is grateful for still being with his family and alive, but does not consider himself a hero.
Like the king of cliches, every day is a gift. You know, for me it is, because I've had 15 years of tomorrows that I shouldn't have. I'm really blessed with a great family. And again, you know, I get emotional with my kids. I honestly believe I was put in a situation and I reacted the way a lot of other people would have done, and I'm fortunate. I'm not a hero, but if I can inspire people, that is just a gift that will keep on giving to me.
For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Sal Bono.